The Acolyte Episode 3, Destiny, is finally here. Where do I begin? Did the Jedi kill the Coven? Did Mae really start the fire that destroyed the fortress? Does the twins' creation lessen Anakin's place as the chosen one? And can Mother Aniseya be my mom? These are the main topics I want to discuss in my review of Episode 3, Destiny. But before we get into it, welcome back to my channel. My name is Scotty Holiday and I'm a queer Star Wars creator. Please consider liking, subscribing, and following me on social media for all my latest Star Wars content. Now, first and foremost, I want to start with the big question. Did the Jedi kill the Coven? Well, that's definitely what it seems like the episode wants us to think. After the episode ended, I immediately rewatched the ending sequence a second time to take in all the details to figure out what exactly happened in those final moments, and I'm honestly still not sure. Mother Aniseya tells Osha that she must discuss the situation with the rest of the Coven and sends Osha off. Osha goes to her room to begin packing her things. Then Mae confronts her, steals her journal, locks her in her room and starts a fire outside the door. Osha escapes through a tunnel to the central reactor of the fortress. She and Mae meet in the reactor but are unable to get to another due to the destruction, and they fall from their platforms. Sol arrives in the nick of time and rescues Osha from the fall, leading her out of the fortress among the dead bodies of the other witches, including Mother Aniseya. Osha is then taken to Coruscant with the Jedi, and Mae visits the Bunta tree after the destruction looking for Osha. So during my rewatch, I paused at the two scenes showing the bodies of the witches looking for lightsaber cuts, blaster marks, etc., but I couldn't really notice anything that could provide a clue as to what killed them. Though it is pretty sus that Sol won't stop to let Osha mourn the loss of her mother, even for a moment, but instead forces her away. Something else that stuck out to me was the moment where Osha hears the screams of the witches above her as she traverses the escape tunnel. After the screams stop, there's a sound we hear that's very reminiscent of a Wookiee roar, but the subtitles say rumbling, so it's kind of hard to tell. Whatever happened, the fact that Sol is already inside the fortress during the destruction is pretty damning to say the least. On the opposite end, there's still a possibility that Mae was the one who started the fire that led to the destruction of the fortress and the Coven. Mae was clearly angry and hurt at Osha's decision to leave her, their family, and the Coven behind, rightfully so, and confronts Osha in her room, telling her, "I won't let you leave. I'll kill you." And whether she meant it or not, Mae was clearly acting on emotion, and the small fire she started outside of Osha's room could have eventually traveled and engulfed the fortress, causing the death of the other witches due to subsequent explosions or falling debris. Mae's selfish and reckless behavior trying to save her sister, the person that she loved, could have actually led to her own destruction, a huge parallel to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. Now, I know some people are upset that, like Anakin, the twins were created by the thread, or as we know it, the Force, but maybe the similarity is actually the point. Both Anakin and the twins' birth required some manipulation of the Force, the pulling of the thread, and maybe this is why in both cases, Anakin and the twins must go through darkness and destruction before they can truly see the light. Let me know what you think about these parallels between the twins and Anakin in the comments. Something else this episode really hit us with were the queer themes surrounding Osha and her destiny, and they definitely hit me super hard. During the scene where Osha confesses to Mother Aniseya that she doesn't want to be a witch, but instead a Jedi, actually made me cry. The themes of feeling different from everyone else, accepting yourself, and choosing your own path were plentiful in this episode, and these are themes myself and so many other queer people go through in discovering and accepting who we are. This episode really had me torn between Osha's decision to leave because on one hand, she feels different from everyone else in the Coven, including her sister, but she's afraid to tell anyone, feeling like her destiny has been predetermined even though it's not what she wants. The Jedi and Sol specifically offer her a place of acceptance within the Order. Celebrating her differences is something not to be ashamed of, but something that makes her special. As a kid discovering my own queer identity, the one thing I really wanted was to not feel different or be different from everyone else. Feeling different made me feel so lonely and isolated a lot of the time until I found the courage to open up about my feelings and found other people like me going through the same feelings and emotions I was. This is exactly what Osha seems to be going through, but unlike me, she's physically isolated and cut off from the outside world until the day the Jedi arrive. So because of this, I want her to go. But on the other hand, when Osha does finally open up to her mother about what she really wants, Mother Aniseya tells her, "Destiny is not decided for you by an anonymous force. You get to make a choice. If you want to pull the thread, then pull it. Fear should not make this decision, you should." This moment between Osha and her mother is a clear parallel to that coming out process, and seeing Mother Aniseya immediately hug her daughter and accept her, recognizing the inner turmoil she must have been going through all this time, is the response that every queer kid wants and should receive from their parents, and because of this, I also want Osha to stay. But unfortunately, the Force sects can't seem to coexist among one another, and Osha's choice is taken away from her. We know that Osha does become a Jedi in the end, but even that decision wasn't made on her own terms, and it could actually end up being the reason why she left the Order. Now, let's get more into the Coven. I really enjoy the introduction of Mother Aniseya's Coven and their unique view of the Force. I love when Star Wars gets spooky, so the recent introductions of these witches in the Acolyte, the Great Mothers in the Ahsoka series, and the Mountain Clan in Tales of the Empire, plus all their unique views of the Force have been right up my alley. What sets Mother Aniseya's Coven apart from the other witches of the Star Wars universe is that her Coven seems to wield the Force more similarly to the Jedi, whereas the Dathomiri and Mountain Clan witches wield the Force as a form of magic. Interestingly enough, Mother Aniseya describes their version of the Force, the thread, as something not to wield, but something that ties a person to their destiny that can bend in any way they choose. We also learned that the Coven was on the verge of extinction until their retreat to Brendok, where they were gifted life in the form of Osha and Mae. It's little pieces of lore like this that I always look forward to in new Star Wars projects, and Jodie Turner-Smith as Mother Aniseya was such a standout for me in this episode, and I kinda want her to be my mom now. I also love the queer representation in this episode with Mother Aniseya and Mother Coral, their relationship, but also Mother Aniseya is a representation of strong women of color. Another piece that I loved was the little detail of the twins getting their locks tended to, making sure they look their best for the Ascension, especially since we're so used to seeing the trope of girls getting their hair brushed and blown out in preparation for their big event, so it was really great to see some representation for beautiful textured hair. Now, I also want to talk about the Jedi and their presence in this episode, and the way that they were introduced was something I did not expect. We initially see Master Soul spying on Mae and Osha in the forest, and after they return to the fortress, Mother Aniseya and Coral discuss the Jedi presence on the planet and their precautions. Later during the Ascension ceremony, the Jedi basically walk in like they own the place, and it's clear they've been sent to Brendok to spy on the Coven and inquire about Mae and Osha. Master Indara says they mean no harm and thought the planet was uninhabited, but we know that is a lie, at least at this point in their journey. The Jedi's main concern is that the Coven is training children, which is against Republic law, but clearly the Republic government only raises an issue with something when it doesn't benefit them. There are no laws against taking young children from their families to train as Jedi, because the Republic benefits from Jedi protection. The Republic sees a planet like Brendok as a threat since it's not a part of the Republic, therefore they have no jurisdiction over its inhabitants, hence why they send the Jedi to investigate in the first place. The Jedi are clearly here to take Mae and Osha away from their family, but I'm still torn over who is at fault for this action, the Jedi or the Republic that it serves. But I think that's the point and exactly why in the current timeline, the Jedi that were present on Brendok hold so much guilt and regret for their actions because they knew what they did was wrong. This is exactly why Master Torban took the Barash vow. It's also most likely why Kelnacca is no longer an active member of the Jedi Order as well. Master Soul clearly holds on to guilt and regret, but also sees the Jedi as saviors, and I wonder if his family suffered a similar fate when he was taken away from them. On a positive note, I love the callbacks to the Phantom Menace, seeing Osha being tested with a similar device as the one Mace Windu uses to test Anakin in Episode 1. We also see Torban take a sample of Osha's blood, which was another great callback to the Phantom Menace, as well as the Bad Batch Season 3 involving midichlorian counts. Speaking of Torban, we also learn that he was Master Indara's Padawan and get a great look at his lightsaber hilt, which I'm in love with. His hilt is a design that's right up my alley and something I would choose for my own lightsaber if I were a Force user. I also loved seeing Kelnacca working on his speeder, since in canon, Wookiees were considered to be expert craftsmen for such an ecological and spiritual species. So in the end, it's still not clear whether Mae or the Jedi actually started the fire that killed the Coven, or what killed the Coven to begin with, thrusting the events of the Acolyte series into play. I feel like there's still so much we don't know about what really happened that night on Brendok, and I hope we get some answers by the end of the series. The Acolyte has excelled at keeping me on the edge of my seat and begging for more at the end of each episode so far. The intrigue is so real and I'm hella invested already. I think my only complaint is that we have to wait another week for the next episode. But let me know your thoughts on the Acolyte episode 3 in the comments below, or join my Discord to continue the conversation there. Make sure to like, subscribe, and consider following me on social media at Scotty Holiday SW for all my latest Star Wars content. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.